Hello, everyone. Welcome to Adventures in Good Health. I'm your host, David Maloof, and we are in Doc's Herbal Corner. The herb that we're going to talk about today is sage. So to help walk us through everything we need to know about sage is my guest, Dr. Stephen Tates. Dr. Tates is a master herbalist, a naturopath, an author, an ambassador of integrative medicine, and he has over half a century of herbal medicine experience. That's a lot. So with me today is Dr. Stephen Tates. So Doc, that is quite an introduction.
Absolutely.
And 50 years, half a century is a lot of time to be learning about herbs. So what are you going to talk to us today, or what are we going to learn today about sage?
We're going to learn a lot about sage. You know, a lot of times when people think of sage, they think of sage, it's like a kitchen medicine, or, using sage in seasoning for their turkey, or, on their salad or stuff like that.
So I'm going to tell you, when you mentioned we're going to talk about sage, there's like two things I know about sage. One, I think of Thanksgiving dressing. And then two, people will burn it around their house
to purify the house,
to purify the house, and which is kind of a separate off topic. But from a medicinal standpoint, I've never really given sage any thought.
Well, today we're going to learn that sage needs to be in that, top tier, or maybe a step down from that top tier as far as a medicinal herb. And I hope when we finish this podcast, people will be like, oh, I need to give sage more consideration other than sprinkling it on my turkey, or my meatloaf or something else, or on my salad. Okay. Now, we know sage has been used in a variety of recipes. We see all the time, add a little sage along with cinnamon, nutmeg, all those kinds of things. But sage falls in that category you always hear me say about a kitchen medicine. Kitchen medicines is my definition of herbs that can be used as seasonings, but then also removing it from thinking of it as a seasoning is a very, very powerful herb all by itself. Sage alone, or sage with peppermint, really helps open up those lungs and sinuses, helps them drain from sinus allergies, seasonal allergies like pollen and ragweed and stuff, which clogs up the lungs and sinuses, where it helps start to clear up or open up those lungs and sinuses to help that mucus and stuff start to drain out of the system. Okay. So it's used a lot from people who know about sage, to help in sinus clearing, sinus draining, lung cleansing, draining mucus out of the lung and even out of the head and bringing it down and pushing it out of the body. Okay, now.
All right, so it has a lot of respiratory benefits to it then.
Yes. But that's not all.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor, Dr. Tates, Herbal Tinctures and Tonics. Dr. Tates offers the Herbal Blood Tonic, Doc's Detox, Herbal Male Tonic, Herbal Female Tonic, and the Herbal Fat Burner. If you would like to order your tonics or learn more information, you can go to drtates.online. And if you click the link in the description and enter the special promo code Adventures in Good Health 2024, you will receive 10% off your entire order. For more information, click the links below. And now, back to the show. I'm just kind of curious because I see sage as just this kind of a dry plant. Do people use it as a tea, or is it a diffuser, or...
It's used. No, it's not used in a diffuser.
Okay, so it's not an essential oil type plant.
It's not an essential oil kind of plant, but
okay,
it is used in what we call and infusion. There's two terms when you're making a tea: infusion or decoction. Decoction is when you're boiling the herbs because they're roots. Infusion is when you're steeping the herbs. So when you're making sage as a tea, you're boiling the water, you're shutting off the water, and then you're adding the sage into the hot water, covering it, and letting it steep. Because sage
that's the infusion. That's called infusion process.
That's a terminology called infusions. Okay, that's an herbal terminology. We don't call them teas. We call them decoctions or infusions. Okay, in our herbal world. So if you're steeping an herb, that's an infusion because then the hot water is drawing the medicinal qualities out into mixed with the water, and you're drinking it to gain the benefits. Not only of the taste, taste is a whole other story, but for its medicinal purposes. And I'm going to run through a number of things when it comes to sage, because I want our podcast viewers to really appreciate what sage is about. One is an antioxidant.
Antioxidant, all right,
Powerful antioxidant. And anybody knows about antioxidants because they hear it all the time. It helps destroy free radicals. It gets into the blood. It weakens the system. It causes a lot of problems. And it's up there, not at the top, but, in that general category as an antioxidant. Now, remember, this is a seasoning as well.
Yeah.
It will help with oral help. Sometimes people will take the tea or the infusion, that's our new word,
infusion,
and mix it with stuff and gargle it in their mouth. Don't swallow it, Although if you accidentally do that, it is taken as a tea. So you got to worry about, I took too much, I'm gone, But it's good for oral health because it kills that plaque and fungus that gets into the gums. Okay. It's also good when you take it as an infusion, because I'm not going to use the word tea anymore. We're going to use this infusion to help with brain function, because it's opening up and draining blockages in the brain, And you know how we see some people, say, what's wrong with them? I always think, they got blockages in their brain. They need to kind of drain all that stuff.
A general term.
Yeah. I mean, a nice PC kind of term, okay? But it helps with brain function. But I'm just
when you say brain function, you mean like alertness?
Alertness, memory, concentration, retention of information. Because what we don't understand is if we're eating wrong and our system from our intestines are clogged, then our lungs get clogged, and our lymph glands get clogged, then our sinuses get clogged, then our eyes and ears get clogged. But it doesn't stop there. The clogging goes up into the head as well. Mm-hmm. So it's starting to drain and move stuff out. Okay, now.
Okay.
Because of its antioxidant and other benefits, it helps lower cholesterol and blood sugar.
Oh.
Because of how it's the antioxidants and the anti-inflammatory ingredients. So it helps lower your cholesterol level, the total cholesterol and the LDL. You've got borderline blood sugar issues, or you're on diabetic medication. It will not interfere with the medication. Whether it's cholesterol medication or blood sugar medication, like, the insulin and stuff like that. It's just gently removing out the junk that contribute to the blood sugar going up and the cholesterol going up, or that fat deposit, because how it's moving stuff out of the system. Okay?
So if someone is on, let's say, type 2 diabetic, and let's just say they're on metformin or something similar to that.
Yeah.
Is the sage something that could have enough of an effect that they would really want to carefully monitor their blood sugar? In other words, could it cause their blood sugar if the insulin is making it go down here?
Uh-huh.
will the sage might overdrive? Is there a risk of overdriving that? And now
No,
you okay.
no, not, and that's a good question. Not at all. Okay, if certain herbs, yes, they would interfere with the medication. Sage doesn't. I mean, if it did, and you're a diabetic or high cholesterol, and you're seasoning with the sage all the time, then there would have been a problem a long time ago. But it's safe to use
Okay.
as an infusion or as a tea on a semi-regular basis without clashing with the medication. But that's a very good point you make, because there are a lot of herbs that you can't take when you're on certain types of medication. I hear people say that you're on high blood pressure medication, you can't take grapefruit or anything that has grapefruit qualities in it because it clashes with the blood pressure medication. So your point is very valid. But it belongs to the mint family. So sage is a kitchen herb. Mints are like oregano, rosemary, basil, thyme, which are some of the things that people mix with the sage when they're seasoning their food. So it falls into that mint family. Like there's a bitter family of herbs. There's a mint family. These are some of the relatives in the mint family. You use in small amounts because it's concentrated. You don't have to use a lot of sage in your infusion. You could do like a teaspoon in your teapot with some hot water, maybe with some peppermint in it. You don't need to use much more than that at all.
Is it the leaf? Is it the flower?
It's the leaf.
It's the leaf. All right.
It's the leaf. Because if it was a flowering thing, then it would fall into potentially an essential oil. But this is the part of the plant. It's the leaf part. See, what people have to understand, when you got a plant, there's certain parts of the plant that are more effective. The sage, you use small amounts, like in your teapot, like a teaspoon or something like that, okay?
All right.
And your, not tea, but what is it called now?
Infusion.
There we go. It's a new terminology.
So in your infusion pot.
Yeah, in your infusion.
All right.
Well, infusion is a method of preparation. Okay, so,
all right.
So
it still goes in a teapot.
Yeah, teapot. You're doing an infusion in the teapot, okay? It helps lower cholesterol and blood sugar without clashing with the medication, okay? And as I said before, it's part of the mint family. Mint family being oregano and rosemary and basil and thyme. All herbs that are used as seasonings along with the sage when you're making your, meatloaf or, on your steak. I'm a vegetarian, right? On my salad or on my rice or something like that, small amounts. It's a natural cleansing agent. So it helps with pesticides. When it's used in some of the spray bottles and stuff, okay? We've talked about other things, and we've talked about essential oils that we mix, with some water. You can make an infusion, a strong infusion, and then spray that around your house. Now, you're not drinking it, but it's a strong infusion, and all in the corners and everything. And they will scurry your way. They'll move to your next door neighbor's house.
All right. So the pests, certain bugs, does it affect rodents?
It affects anything that doesn't belong in your house.
All right. So it kind of repels them, and they don't like it. So they
don't
out.
like it, and they'll move next door to your neighbors. But you can't help your neighbors, but hey,
That's not very neighborly. I mean,
you just don't tell them. I sprayed my house and chased all the rodents and everything away. Do you have the rodents now? That's not a neighbor conversation, But now,
all right.
We explained what you think are the primary things. There's antioxidant, there's an anti-inflammatory, lowers cholesterol, lowers blood sugar. It's a natural cleansing agent, So, normally when you're talking about an herb, that's enough to be beneficial, right? But that's not all.
All right, here we go.
Okay. I know I'm going rogue now. Okay.
All right, here we go.
Very, 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 very high in vitamins and minerals.
Oh.
So not only is it helping drain and help, but it's a very nourishing herb. Now, the things that certain herbs are unique when they can cleanse and nourish and build at the same time. So that elevated sage automatically to a whole nother level is an infusion. Yes, it's a cleansing agent. Yes, it will help the lungs and sinuses, but it's re-nourishing the body. That puts it in a different category altogether. Okay? So it has protein, it has carbs, it has iron, it has B6, it has vitamin K, it has manganese in it. I'm going to say that again. It has protein. Small amounts, but it still has protein in it. It has vitamin K. It has iron. Vitamin D6, D like in David, okay? Calcium. Manganese. It has about 10% of the vitamin K that you typically get from your dark green leafy vegetables. So when you're drinking this tea periodically, it's starting to nourish. But that's not all. It has a fairly good amount of zinc and copper in it, as long as I said, the vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E. So
wow,
when
it's like a superfood in a sense.
Yeah, in a sense, as an infusion. No, you still do the others, but it complements and adds to your bitters or your essential oils, or your supplements you're taking by when you're drinking that sage. We talked about it being an antioxidant, and antioxidants have different what's called polyphenols, okay, that identify as antioxidant. Sage has 160 distinct polyphenols. So it has 160 distinctly different types of antioxidants.
160.
160. 160.
Wow.
In your simple little kitchen medicine that you use on your turkey or on your salad. Sage.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. One
All
cup
right.
of...
Let's go sage.
Yeah. Hey, listen, its status has already been immediately elevated.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Now,
yeah, that's exciting.
1 cup of sage tea, take a couple of times a day. And it is really tasty when you mix it with peppermint leaves. Oh, my goodness. Because sage by itself is like, but you mix it with some peppermint, ooh, you've got a real tasty mixture. You add a little lemon, maybe a little dash of honey if you're not a diabetic.
So just because it's good for you doesn't mean it has to taste bad.
No. The bitters, that's not true. It's going to taste bad.
But you get used to the bitters. I mean, honestly, you get used to them. But sometimes you can take something that tastes good.
Yeah. And sage
sweet like that, and it's good for you.
Yeah. But there's more.
All right, here we go. Sounds like a car salesman, and there's more.
Boy, yeah. It's got 4 good wheels on the car or something like that.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. Like I said, it reduces total cholesterol, but it also reduces what's called LDL, which is the bad fats in it. But it reduces the bad fats and the total cholesterol, but raises the LDL, which is the good fats. So it's helping to reduce the bad fats with the LDL.
Wait.
And
All right, so the bad ones are the LDLs?
LDLs.
And the good ones are the?
HDLs.
HDLs, okay.
Now, and so there's 3 categories. Total cholesterol, which, should be below 200. Then your LDL, which is your bad fats, and your HDL, which is your good fat. Drinking sage is one of those teas that helps with reducing the bad fats and the total cholesterol numbers, which eventually lead to cardiovascular disease or heart condition. And then it elevates the HDL, which also protects you from heart issues and stuff like that ends up screwing with the body. Okay?
Wow.
And now, that should be enough, right?
I would think, but I have a feeling there's more.
See, you know me well.
Yes.
Okay. There's a reason why I picked sage today, just to take us out of the box. Okay. So along with that, and I wrote it down, it's good for oral health.
Okay.
It helps women with hot flashes and menopause symptoms.
All right. Excellent.
Okay.
Is that well known?
Among certain women that are kind of, into herbs and stuff,
Yeah.
or women I've recommended that have those hot flashes and real hot menopause stuff. There's several herbs I might mention, but I said, start drinking you some sage. You mean a seasoning? Start drinking some sage. Add some peppermint. Does it make it go away totally? But no, but it will ease it by 50, 60% as far as the symptoms at a minimum. Like I said before, it lowers blood sugar, helps with memory and brain health, but it also strengthens the bone health because of the calcium and magnesium and the vitamin D and stuff. So it's feeding. Now, is that the only thing you need to take? No, but see, when you're doing your supplements and herbs and bitters and you want to be drinking, what do we call them now? We don't call them teas anymore. Infusions, then you want an infusion that adds to everything you're doing in trying to improve your overall health. So, a cup of sage with some peppermint. It tastes good, but it's, the commercial, it tastes good, but it's good for you. Now you know this tastes good and this is really good for you, So that gives you the listener say. But here's the other thing that makes it unique, and from the podcasts that we've done in the past, there is no known side effects to sage. Because it's used as a food. It's used as a seasoning in the food. If there was side effects, it couldn't be used in foods. So what
about someone, but what if they're using it for medicinal purposes? Can they just take it for long periods of time and there's no concerns? Or, are there generally limits?
There's generally limits to most herbs that you take it. There are exceptions to that, like things like bee pollen and ginseng and stuff like that. They'll always say, this is something that you can take every day because it keeps building and building and building. But, and I can't imagine somebody drinking sage every day for forever because you want to drink something different. You want to have something different. But when you're doing the sage, couple cups a day, and I always say it's a standard rule, if you're taking the infusion and you're doing it twice a day for, a week, 10 days, you take 2 or 3 days off, go and make you some chamomile tea, or something, or some ginger root tea, change it up. But you want to know, I've got cholesterol issues. I got blood sugar issues. I'm going to incorporate my sage as frequently as I can because it's going to help with everything else that I'm doing. And that's what sage comes in. So sage, if we were doing a list, and it wouldn't be the top 5 or top 10 herbs, if I was doing the top 25 herbs, sage would be in that mix, All
right. So it's a good one.
It's a good one, yes.
And it sounds like it's pretty easy to take an infusion or to drink an infusion, a tea. It seems like it's readily available. I mean, you see it, available in a lot of places, certainly in grocery stores. Let me ask you, is the sage that you can buy at the local grocery store, is that a pretty good version of the sage, or would you generally recommend someone go to an herb store? Because maybe it's a different type of sage.
I would recommend them going to an herb store or to a farmer's market, to get, because your farmer's market or an herb store, especially if they have it in bulk, in the jars and stuff, then that's the same sage, but it's fresher and it's stronger and tends to be in glass, which you're dealing with leaves and flowers and stuff. To preserve the strength of the leaves and flowers, you're never keeping in those plastic bags, that you get with a health food store. You always want to put your leaves and your flowers as a standard rule in some glass jars.
In a glass jar.
Small,
you mean like mason jars? Is that what you're thinking?
Like mason jars, any kind of glass, because you keep the life of your herbs, 3 times longer when it's in glass, stored in glass in a cool place than if it just stays in the bag that you get when
Does it need to be in a dark place, or can it be just out on in the kitchen somewhere?
Out there in the kitchen. A lot of people keep it in the pantry because that's when they want to store all their herbs, but it's not something that needs to be in light or needs to be in darkness. There are certain herbs that need to be in darkness or need to be in light, but most of your kitchen remedies, no. And sage is one of them. And so you want to always have a bunch of nice glass jars, and in the row with just sage and your chamomile and all your other kind of herbs, and they're in the glass. And you'll know because with some herbs like peppermint or sage and stuff, they got a distinct smell. Some of them are subtle. Some of them not as strong as, say, peppermint or eucalyptus, but you can smell it after a while, especially when it opens up your sinuses and starts to drain where you can breathe, and you can open it up and like, this is still fresh, and you make your tea. And then I said, I'm getting a bunch of vitamins and minerals, and it's helping my health, and it tastes good with the peppermint at the same time. And I'm having a salad with some of the sage sprinkled on there, along with some of the other mint herbs and stuff. So I got sage in my food, and I'm drinking some tea, with the sage.
All right. That's a lot. Doc, if anyone has any questions about sage or anything else, they can reach out to you. Your contact information is coming up on the screen, and it's also in the show notes for the podcast or YouTube. It's your phone number and your website. They can reach out to you if they have any questions.
Absolutely.
So, Doc, thank you very much for your sage advice on this episode.
You couldn't help yourself, could you?
There you go. I always wanted to hit that button for the drums. But yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate you and appreciate your knowledge and your wisdom.
I appreciate you saying that. I've been doing this for a while, but I have to say this in closing. I had good teachers. I was blessed coming up, to be around some of my elders that have been into this whole natural healing and herbal kingdom. And I was blessed with knowing how to go out and pick and identify herbs and, getting in with them. And this is not just the schooling. These are teachers that I, got to spend time with and start to appreciate, the whole herbal kingdom. So, and in sharing this knowledge with other people on the podcast is just passing on the information that my teachers gave me, and I'm trying to give to you and to the listeners and viewers.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Dr. Tates. To my audience, thank you very much. If you are still listening, we appreciate that. We appreciate you liking and commenting and engaging with the videos. I do have another request. There's a button down there called the subscribe button. I need you to press that. We have a ton of content coming our way, and if you hit the subscribe and the notification button, then you will be notified every time a new video comes up. It also helps with the algorithms for whatever it is that YouTube does. So thank you. So until next week, this is David Malou signing off, exploring natural approaches to good health. That does it for this episode of Adventures in Good Health. We would like to hear from you regarding this podcast and any suggestions you have for future podcasts. Please subscribe and leave a rating or a review.